20,000 years ago, the world was a frozen prison. Glaciers a mile thick crushed everything beneath them. Ice stretched from pole to pole, swallowing mountains, burying forests, erasing entire landscapes. Temperatures plunged to 60 below. The wind didn't just blow, it screamed. It cut through flesh and bone like a blade. This was not a world built for survival. This was a world built to kill. And yet, somewhere out there, in the howling darkness, small bands of humans clung to life. No cities, no walls, no technology, just raw will and a desperate instinct to endure. This is the story of how they did it. This is the story of how we almost didn't make it. It began with a spark, fire, the single most important tool in human history. Without it, the Ice Age would have been a death sentence. Full stop. Fire meant warmth when the world offered none. It meant light in the endless winter darkness. It meant cooked meat, softer, safer, packed with calories the body could actually absorb. Fire kept predators at bay. Wolves, cave lions, hyenas, they all feared the flame. But fire was more than survival. It was community. Families gathered around it. Stories were told, plans were made, bonds were forged in its glow. Fire didn't just keep humans alive, it made them human. But fire alone wasn't enough. The cold was relentless, so humans adapted. They hunted animals, not just for food, but for their skins. They scraped hides clean with stone tools, dried them, softened them, stitched them together using bone needles finer than anything you'd expect from a so-called primitive people. Layered furs, fitted boots, hoods lined with animal fat for waterproofing. These weren't crude rags, these were engineered garments. And shelter? Caves were the obvious choice, natural fortresses against the wind and snow. But when caves weren't available, humans built their own. Frames made of mammoth bones, walls of stacked stone, roofs of stretched hide. They insulated floors with dried grass and moss. They weren't just hiding from the cold, they were engineering their survival. Survival demanded innovation, and humans delivered. They took chunks of flint and with precise strikes knapped them into razor-sharp blades. Scrapers, burins, awls, each tool designed for a specific task. They carved bone into needles, fishhooks, and harpoon tips. They lashed stone points to wooden shafts and created spears that could pierce the toughest hide. Later came the atlatl, a spear-throwing device that doubled a hunter's range and force. These weren't accidents, these were inventions. Each generation refined what came before, passed knowledge down, improved, adapted, overcame. The human mind was the ultimate weapon against extinction, and they needed every weapon they had. Because the Ice Age was the age of giants. Woolly mammoths, towering, thundering beasts weighing 6 tons or more. Hunting one was not a solo act. It was a coordinated operation. Scouts tracked herds for days across frozen tundra. Hunters communicated with signals, driving mammoths toward cliffs, bogs, or narrow ravines where the massive creatures couldn't maneuver. Then they struck. Spears flew. The beast bellowed. The ground shook. One kill could feed an entire tribe for weeks. Every part of the animal was used. Meat for food, bones for tools and shelter, tusks for carving, fat for fuel, hide for clothing. Nothing was wasted. Nothing could be. But here's what separates survival from humanity. Deep inside limestone caves, far from daylight, our ancestors painted. Bison, horses, mammoths, handprints pressed against cold stone walls. These weren't idle doodles, they were messages, rituals, perhaps prayers to the spirits of the hunt. The paintings at Lascaux, at Altamira, at Chauvet, 17,000 years old, and they still take your breath away. These people carved small figurines from ivory. They made flutes from bird bones and played music in the firelight. They buried their dead with care, with flowers, with tools for the journey ahead. They told stories, they dreamed, they created meaning in a world of ice and death. Culture was born in the cold. When the ice pressed too hard, humans moved. They followed the herds, south, always south, chasing warmer climates and greener pastures. They crossed frozen rivers and navigated mountain passes choked with snow. And then came the greatest migration of all. Sea levels had dropped so low that a land bridge emerged between Siberia and North America. Beringia, a frozen highway to a new world. Small bands of hunters walked across it, following mammoth and bison into a continent no human had ever seen. They didn't know where they were going. They only knew they couldn't stay. And so they walked into the unknown, into the future. And then, slowly, everything changed. The earth tilted, temperatures climbed, glaciers that had ruled for millennia began to retreat. Meltwater carved new rivers, forests reclaimed the tundra, grasslands exploded with life. The megafauna began to vanish, whether from climate change, overhunting, or both. Their era was ending, but for humans, a new era was beginning. The ice pulled back like a curtain, revealing a world reborn. Fresh coastlines, fertile valleys, lakes teeming with fish. The cage was open, and humans stepped through. They were supposed to die. Every odd was stacked against them. The cold, the predators, the sheer brutality of a world locked in ice. But they didn't die. They built fires, they made clothes, they invented tools, they hunted giants, they painted masterpieces in the dark. They walked across continents. They didn't just survive the Ice Age, they conquered it. And everything that came after, every civilization, every city, every song, every discovery, all of it traces back to those stubborn, brilliant, unbreakable humans who refused to disappear. That's why we're here, because they endured.